Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be doing a guide for Brandenburg for EU4 1.34 Lions of the North. So Brandenburg is a nation that starts off in the Holy Roman Empire in the northern portion of Germany, and we do start off as an elector in the Holy Roman Empire as well. Now, even though Lions of the North has dropped and the Teutonic Order has gotten lots of buffs and an amazing mission tree, and that might have made them the more fun and better way to form Prussia, I do still think that playing as Brandenburg, starting as them, is the classic way to form Prussia, the way we all know and love. So that's why I'm doing a guide for Brandenburg, and plus a bunch of other content creators have already done guides for the Teutonic Order, but leave a like and a comment if you want to see a guide for the Teutonic Order, or at least my spin on a guide for the Teutonic Order. Moving further with Brandenburg, we start off in a pretty good position, although our lands are pretty poor and our national ideas are really good. Of course, later we're going to get the Prussian ones and we're going to become even more powerful, but for now we start off with a construction and cost of fabricate claims discount, and then we have infantry combat, some tax, stab discount, morale, diplorep, and imperial authority, which is pretty nice for being emperor, unrest, and some nobility and burghers loyalty, along with state maintenance as a finisher. Our mission tree over here guides us towards forming Prussia and conquering their lands, and we will be following it pretty loosely. Of course, we'll even try to become Holy Roman Emperor in the meantime until we can flip Protestant and form the nation of Prussia. And before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like. It really helps out a lot, and if you want to see more guides like this or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. Let's take a look at what we need to do as Brandenburg. Alright, here we are as Brandenburg. Now, as you all know, we are gonna wait for the Fate of Neumark event where the Teutonic Order sells us these two provinces right here. And luckily, since a few patches ago, this event does happen more quickly than it used to. But while we're waiting for that, it's time to go into our estates and go ahead and summon the Diet. You can pick whichever agenda is best for you. Next, we're going to give the clergy religious state and clerical advisory council, along with religious diplomats. We're going to give the nobility primacy of the nobility, increased levies, and aristocratic councilors. And then we're going to give the burghers land of commerce, patronage of the arts, commercial advisory board, but not indebted to the burghers. No loans just yet. First, we're going to buy these provinces, then we're going to take burgher loans. Now we can seize land. Don't set any rivals right at the start. We're only going to do this right before we declare our first war. Next, you can go into your advisors and check and see if you have a diplorep guy. In my case, I actually don't have one, and if you also don't have one, make sure to hire an improved relations guy, like this guy right here. Even though he's a level 2 guy, I'm gonna take him for now, and later, once I sort my alliances, I'm gonna fire him and switch him for someone else. So a diplorep or improved relations guy. We don't need other advisors right now. Next, we can go into our army and see that our force limit is 12, and we do start off with 7 infantry regiments and 2 cavalry regiments. And this is fine for now. Before our war and after the Fate of Neumark, we are gonna buff up our army a little bit. Next, we're gonna go ahead and ally Poland if we can. If not, just royal marry them, just like this. Then, once the diplomat is back, you will be able to ally them. And do the same with Austria. If you can ally them right away, do it. If not, just royal marry them. Now it's time to wait for these diplomats to come back, and now that they're back, I'm gonna ally a few more electors. You should do the same, because we do start off as an elector ourselves, and we'll be voting for ourselves. If we can get 3 more guys to vote for us, we'll be elected HRE Emperor, and that's a pretty nice buff, at least until we flip Protestant, and then lose the emperorship and form Prussia, but later in the War of the Protestant League, make Protestant official and win back the emperorship. So go ahead and ally 3 more electors. Maybe someone like Cologne right here, and then I'm also going to ally the Palatinate and Mainz. Those are going to be my choices. You can ally whichever electors you want to. You might want to avoid Saxony and Bohemia though if we're fighting them, but you can also ally one of them if you want to. We can just break that alliance later. So now go ahead and ally these guys and a few more electors and start currying favors with Poland immediately right after you've allied them. At this point, you can turn off your fort and lower army maintenance to save some money. Once you've allied a couple of electors, surely someone else will vote for you as well, and at that point, you will be able to take the mission Imperial Ambition for prestige, improved relations, and an additional diplomat. And that diplomat is gonna come in very handy. So now that a month has passed, I'm gonna start improving relations with Austria so I can ally them. And I'm gonna ally Poland and then curry favors with them, and then with the final diplomat, I'll improve relations with my allies. And there's the Fate of Neumark event. Like I said, it does happen pretty quickly. This is a bit quicker than it does happen, but you should get it 1446 at the latest in my experience. And of course, once this event does happen, we are going to make the Grandmaster a generous offer and purchase these 2 provinces from the Teutons. After that, we can go ahead and take this mission right here, reclaim Neumark, which gives us permaclaims on these provinces right here. And at this point, check and see which of Stettin and Wolgast is easier to fight. In my case, Wolgast have allied Saxe-Lauenburg and Stettin have allied Munster. They're both pretty easy, but Wolgast is the one you should try and go for if you can. At this point, we can go ahead and get burger loans just like that, and we can rearrange our army by building 3 more infantry regiments. And go ahead and recruit a general or give your heir military command. He's not that good and we won't really care if he dies. So I'm just gonna give him no command. He's a pretty bad general too. Of course, after you've gotten these 2 provinces, you should also raise army maintenance and activate your fort. At this point, we are getting ready to declare our first war versus one of these 2 guys, like I said earlier. And once your army is built up and your morale is full, you can go ahead and set some rivals. I do recommend rivaling one of these 2 guys that you're gonna fight right here. I'm actually gonna rival both of them, so Wolgast and Stettin. And then for your third rival, I recommend setting the Teutonic Order. After all of that is done, you can go ahead and recruit a mill advisor, a morale, discipline, or fort defense level 1 guy. I do have this fort defense guy, so I am gonna hire him, although the manpower guy is excellent as well. And after we have that guy right there, we can go ahead and declare our first war. Like I said, preferably versus Wolgast, but if you can't, you can declare on Stettin too. And I'm gonna declare for the province of Stolp right here. If you fight Wolgast, you're only gonna take Stolp and vassalize the rest of them. If you're fighting Stettin, you're gonna full annex them. I'm not gonna call in any of my allies because I don't need their help. Wolgast only has 1 ally, but if they have more allies, you could curry favors with your elector allies and call them in. During this war, you should be improving relations with Poland and currying favors with them. We want to try and get 10 favors with Poland before their truce with the Teutonic Order runs out on December 1449. Because at that point, they'll want to declare on them themselves, but what we want to happen is that we declare on the Teutons and call in Poland, so we control their truce. Something else you can do to speed up the improving of relations with Poland is to tell your merchant that's in Krakow right here to establish communities. Once you get it up to 200 with Poland, you can tell them to maximize profit once again. I'm actually going to do the same thing over in Vienna since I want to ally Austria quicker. Some of you at this point will have probably already allied Austria, and your alliances should look a little something like this. 3 electors, Austria and Poland. And once the war with your enemy is done, like I said, if it's Stettin, full annex them, but if it's Wolgast, you're gonna do this. You're gonna take Stolp for yourself and then go ahead and vassalize them because we don't want to get too much AE. As we can see like this, it's only 35, whereas if we full annex them, it's 40. Not a big difference, but it will make a difference in the long run. So take Stolp, vassalize them, and then take all of their money. There we go, I just had to wait a month, and now the war is done. After you're done with this war, if you fought Wolgast and did this, you will be able to take the mission Pomeranian Succession, which gives us legitimacy and permaclaims on the 2 Prussia areas. However, if you fought Stettin, you won't be able to take this mission. So immediately after you annex Stettin, start spying on the Teutonic Order and build a claim on Danzig. That's how we get around these silly alliances. And after you've done this, it's time to chill and wait for Poland's truce with the Teutons to run out. At this point, I can also ally Austria. While one diplomat is currying favors with Poland, with the other 2 you can improve with outrage countries, or with the second one you should be spying on the Teutons if you got Stettin. At this point, I'm running 3 level 1 advisors and not losing money, although army maintenance and forts are down. You should be doing the same. Now it's January 1449, and at this point I have 10 favors with Poland. By this point, you should have gotten them as well. After you've done that, you can buff up your army slightly. Your force limit now should be 14, so you can go ahead and comfortably build 2 more infantry regiments. I'm keeping my army here in Stolp, ready to pounce on the Teutons. We only got a few more months. Now we can see in my case here that the Teutons have allied Bohemia. This is actually not something that's very common, but something that is kinda common in 1.34 is that the Teutons allied Denmark. Now if that has happened a couple of months after the game starts, for example in January or February 1445, you can check to see if the Teutons have allied Denmark or someone else that's strong, and you can go ahead and restart if you don't want to fight a big nation like that. Although with Poland on your side, you will be able to beat everyone, it's just that maybe you'll want a little shorter war. In my case, like I said, they've allied Bohemia, which isn't very common, but I guess we're gonna have to fight them as well. The best case scenario is that they've allied Riga and the Livonian Order. which does happen pretty often. And once December 1st, 1449 hits, it's time to declare your war on the Teutonic Order. Of course, Poland's truce with them is now up. Now, what you want to be careful in this war. The Teutons get a lot of buffs to their morale from events and from missions right at the start of the game, and of course, depending on what they chose in those events, and depending on which missions they completed, they could have insane morale. So go into the ledger right here and into military and army quality comparison and just type in Teutons or whatever to check and see their morale. Now, of course, their land maintenance is down, but they should still have pretty high morale. If they do have higher morale than yours, you should avoid battles with them at all costs because they will defeat you. Just let Poland and Lithuania do the work. And what you want to focus on in this war with the Teutons is the provinces of Danzig and Königsberg. It's fine if Poland occupies everything else. The most important are these two right here. So just in case, go ahead and set them as provinces of interest, and it's time to go ahead and declare on the Teutonic Order, of course, for the conquest of Danzig. Go ahead and call in Poland, and maybe someone else if you need them. I am gonna call in everyone else, just because we're gonna fight Bohemia. And go ahead and declare on the Teutons. Like I said, focus on Danzig and Königsberg immediately. And here in my case, I can see that the Teutons' morale is 2.63, whereas mine is 3, so I'm pretty good, but I have seen in a few of my trial runs the Teutons having 4 morale at this point, which is insane. And there we go, my war with the Teutonic Order is done. It was pretty easy, even though Bohemia was involved. With the help of Poland, of course, anything should be possible. And in this first war, we're only gonna take the provinces of Danzig and Königsberg. No money, no war reps, no nothing, and you can give this province right here to Poland if you want to, but you don't have to. And that's the first war done. Don't take anything else. We want the truce to be short. And there we go. Just like that, we have 2 very important and powerful provinces that we need to form Prussia. They both produce gems right here in my case, which is super nice, and they're also both centers of trade. But most importantly, we have the same truce with the Teutons that Poland has, which means they won't be declaring on them and taking provinces that we want. Now that this war is done, A might be slightly high. You can pop off another war or two, but it's better to chill. So just go back to Berlin. You can turn off your forts. You can lower army maintenance, core up the provinces that you took from the Teutons, and activate encourage development in your capital state right here, and dev Berlin up to 30 to help speed up the spawning of the Renaissance and to tick off the age objective, which requires us to have a large city. So it's time to chill for a few years. At this point, you can focus on your economy and deving, like I said, and building up your nation. I did forget to mention that I did make Mecklenburg and Bohemia end their alliances with the Teutons when I was piecing them out. These are other nations that we might want to fight, so it's best to keep our truce with the Teutons on lock. And by taking these 2 provinces from the Teutons, we should have about an 8-ish year truce, and in half of that time we're gonna spend chilling, and then the other half we might declare on a nation surrounding us, a small nation like Magdeburg, Anhalt, Lüneburg, or Mecklenburg, something like that, but it's not necessary. It's just a possibility. At this point, if your heir general is still alive, it's not a bad idea to disinherit him. You can do this if you want to, although it isn't necessary. We will lose the prestige, but we might get a better guy than 221. I am gonna disinherit him in my case. And luck be my lady tonight, because I've just gotten a talented and ambitious 666 daughter. I haven't got this in over a year, so it's super nice that I've gotten it in a guide. However, because this is a guide, and because me having a 666 ruler might be unrealistic for everyone watching, and it might make me more powerful than you would be playing at home, I am gonna have to reject this heir right here and just spawn one using the console. So it does pain me to do this, but the guide would be unrealistic otherwise, so I do have to reject her. And there we go, I just got a new heir. I did use the console for this, by the way, to simulate getting an heir, and a 633 is a bit more reasonable. Of course, only dev Berlin up to 30 if you already have Tech 4 in every category. At this point, I've paid off all my loans. This is mainly because I got war reps from the nations I was fighting, and once you do the same, you can go ahead and get new burger loans, and at this point, they will be larger than last time, and you can use them to build a marketplace in Berlin and in Stettin if you've conquered it, or in this province right here if it's owned by your subject. I am gonna build them a marketplace, and then I'm also gonna build a church in Berlin as well, or some more marketplaces in Danzig and Königsberg once they're done coring. So marketplaces, they're the primary building we want to build during the early game. At this point, you may have a bunch of electors voting for you, and you might be next in line to become the HRE Emperor. In my case, we're still not quite there yet, and if some of you are super lucky, you may already be the HRE Emperor, which is gonna buff your force limit and manpower very significantly. And there's Berlin up to 30 in my case. Now we'll set the advancement effort so we can get the Renaissance faster. For your tier 2 government reform, you can go with strength and noble privileges, although this will be pretty useless when you get elected HRE Emperor because we won't really need the manpower at all. That's why I recommend going with compromise the nobility, so increased levies no longer increases nobility influence and no longer decreases max absolutism, but you could also go with noble officer corps, which is pretty strong, especially when you're Prussia later. So either of these 3 choices are valid. This one will be the least useful when you become emperor, so that's why I suggest one of these 2 more. Of course, keep in mind that we are going to lose the emperorship when we go Protestant. Either way, I'm going to go with noble officer corps right off the bat and stick with this until the end of the game. If you choose one of these 2, you should swap to this one when you form Prussia. After a few years have passed and aggressive expansion has died down at least a little bit, you can go ahead and declare your next war on one of your weak neighbors. Preferably that would be Stettin or Magdeburg, because they have centers of trade, and that is something we want. So whichever of your neighbors is the easiest, declare on them, preferably Stettin or Magdeburg. I was gonna declare on Stettin, but it seems that they've allied Denmark, and I was gonna declare on Magdeburg, but they've allied Bohemia, so looks like it's gonna be Mecklenburg for me for now. And I'm gonna call in these 3 boys to help me out. As we can see at this point, 3 electors are voting for me, the 3 elector allies, and I'm voting for me myself, so that means when Frederick III here dies, I will be elected HRE Emperor. In my game right here, Poland has just enforced their union over Hungary and Croatia, which means I'll have to fight a super powerful Poland later on down the line. You shouldn't really worry about this. This doesn't happen too often. When you fight Poland, it's just gonna be them and Lithuania, most likely. And once your war with your neighbors is done, of course, keep an eye out on aggressive expansion. Magdeburg's provinces are pretty highly devved, so you might want to look out for that. But most likely, whichever neighbor you fight, aside from probably Saxony or Bohemia, you're going to be full annexing them. In my case, I am going to full annex Mecklenburg right here and try not to get more than 40 aggressive expansion when taking anything. In my case, it's about 36 right here, which is about enough. And I'm also gonna take all their money. Now it's time to chill a bit and get ready for our next war, which is once again gonna be versus the Teutons. Keep an eye out on that truce you have with them and make sure not to let Poland declare on them before you do. Once again, you wanna drag Poland in this war. Once 10 years have passed, and if you do have more than 190 opinion with Wolgast, of course, if you vassalize them, you can go ahead and give the nobility integration policy and start annexing Wolgast. Now that my truce with the Teutons is up, and now that Poland has ended their war with Bosnia, funnily enough, I am gonna go ahead and declare on the Teutons. Like I said, do this immediately when your truce expires. In my case, they've allied Sweden now, which is once again something that's not common at all, and you shouldn't be worrying about something like this. So go ahead and declare on the Teutons, and your focus in this war is these provinces right here. Once again, you can give Culm over to Poland, so make sure to occupy these provinces before Poland does, because they will most likely want them and not transfer occupation over to you. So I'm just gonna declare for Memo right here, call in Poland and Austria, because we will have to deal with Sweden, but otherwise just Poland is enough. The reason we're calling them into these wars is so they don't declare their own war versus the Teutons. So I'm just gonna do something like this. So I'm just gonna split my army up into a couple of pieces over here and try and go occupy most of the territories before Poland gets here. And there we go, I've managed to occupy these 3 provinces, and I am sieging these 3, so it's good. Poland won't take anything here in my case. This other war, by the way, I didn't declare it, I'm just helping out my ally, Mainz. At this point, you might think I'm behind on tech. I'm 444, Venice here is 555. I can tech up. Why am I not teching up? The reason is simple. In most cases, I would say in EU4, you will wanna get Tech 4 in all categories, bump your capital up to 30 if you're in Europe. If you're outside of Europe, bump it up until you spawn the Renaissance, then embrace the Renaissance, and then tech up to Tech 5. That's how I usually do it, and I feel like it's a pretty good tip to give to you guys. So once I get 200 ducats, then I'll embrace the Renaissance, then I'll tech up to Tech 5. Of course, be careful when fighting wars when you're at Tech 4, because if you're fighting nations with Tech 5, they'll crush you. At this point, since Sweden is my rival, I am gonna humiliate them. Keep an eye out for things like this. You may be able to humiliate a few rivals that you haven't declared on directly. I'm also gonna get war reps and money. And just like that, at this point I have also been elected HRE Emperor, which is really nice. This was something expected. You should be able to easily keep a hold of the emperorship until you flip to Protestant. And once you do become emperor, you'll probably be able to take this mission, for +3 Diplo rep, which you should do. When you do become Emperor, your force limit becomes insane and your manpower becomes insane as well. So that's why I think there's no need for strength and noble privileges. And once your second war with the Teutonic Order is done, hopefully you've occupied the provinces that I have, it's time to make the Teutons not exist. So you can totally go ahead and full annex them. There's no need to worry about aggressive expansion here because they're not in the HRE, and I'm also going to give Culm over to Poland, and I'm going to take all their money. And that's our second war done. Now, the Teutons should not exist. After you take a hold of both Prussia areas, you will be able to take this mission right here, which gives us permaclaims on Silesia and Lusatia, along with mill power. Those are these provinces right here. Bohemia should own them in your game as well. At this point, to minimize aggressive expansion, I'm once again going to tell the merchant in Vienna to establish communities, and I'm going to move the guy that's in Krakow over to Saxony and tell him to establish communities as well. Now I took out some new loans, embraced the Renaissance, and I'm also selling it to Austria. I can also tech up just like that, and we have a bunch of points we can use for ideas later on. We are going to be opening up with a mill idea group. Even though you've become HRE Emperor, you're probably not going to focus on doing these right here too much, and don't worry about the Reformation because, like I said, we are going to stop being Emperor. So we just want the manpower and force limit and economic benefits. At this point, I've also annexed Wolgast and become a great power. Once you do own 15 provinces over in northern Germany, you will be able to take this mission right here, which gives us permaclaims on these areas right here. As we can see right now, Poland wants to break their alliance with me, but that's not a problem at all, because once the Teutons don't exist anymore, we don't need the alliance with Poland. Even though they're super strong in my game, it's not gonna be a big deal if they break it. In fact, I would break it myself if they didn't want to do it themselves. And there we go, Poland has broken their alliance with me, and that's totally fine. Once that does happen, you might want to try and ally nations which are Poland's rivals, maybe the Ottomans or Muscovy. You probably won't be able to ally the Ottomans, but with a little bit of improving relations, you should be able to link up with Muscovy. That's exactly what I'm going to do in my case. This is because later we'll want to attack Poland from both sides, from over here in the HRE, and we will want someone's help from over here. But even your alliance with Austria should be enough to take down Poland and Lithuania, which probably won't have Hungary in your game. But after you've taken the Teutonic Order, and if you've expanded over here, it's time to chill for quite a lot, because AE will be pretty high. Some of you might get coalitioned, but a coalition won't declare. We haven't expanded enough for that to happen. Once you take Admin Tech 5, it will be time for your first idea group, and of course, since we're going Brandenburg into Prussia, we will want to go full Space Marines and take offensive, defensive, quality, maybe quantity or aristo later, and then of course we are going to want to go innovative, economic, and diplomatic and trade for all the nice military policies that we're going to get. Like I said, we will be opening up with a mill idea group, and for your opener, I recommend offensive or quality. Offensive slightly more, since we won't be using boats that much, so offensive for your first idea group. After this, you might want to focus on mill, depending on the ruler you have. I'm not in my case, and I can take this idea right here. In my case, Muscovy have also just rivaled me, which is not very good luck for me in the alliance department. Oh well, this is something I'm gonna have to deal with. Hopefully, something like this won't happen for you. And there's another very lucky event for me, a new champion of the joust. Let's see what he is. Of course, I'm not gonna use him if he's too powerful, and actually he's not that powerful, so I am gonna put him in charge of my armies. I wouldn't use him otherwise, because that might make my game irrelevant to yours. When you become the HRE Emperor, it's also not a bad idea to try and Royal Marry and ally Burgundy if they're still alive, of course. In my case right here, they don't really like me too much, but let's see if I can improve enough with them to Royal Marry them. Of course, by being the HRE Emperor and by having a royal marriage with them, that increases the chance of them picking us when the Burgundian succession happens. In my case right here, they've also rivaled both France and Austria, which means if I royal marry them, if I can do it, they'll pick me for sure, and I'll get the Burgundian inheritance. This is not something that's necessary at all, but it would be a very nice bonus to your game if you could get the Burgundian succession. At this point, I've also managed to royal marry France, and now I can ally them as well. It's super nice that they haven't rivaled Austria, and that's my big ally that replaced my Poland alliance. Like I said, to try and go for Muscovy, but if you can't, you can totally go for someone else like France, Castile, maybe even England, maybe Denmark or Sweden. It's totally up to you. You just gotta find a big guy to replace Poland with. Don't forget to reduce autonomy once in a while. It is increasing because we have low crownland ownership. This will net you more trade income, more manpower, and more tax income as well. After a few years have passed since you full annexed the Teutons, if AE isn't too high, you can go ahead and hit a smaller neighbor and full annex them, maybe someone like Stettin or Magdeburg, the nations I mentioned previously. However, if AE is pretty high, you still might want to chill, because our next big war is actually going to be with Bohemia in order to take Silesia. In my case, AE is still pretty high, and I still have a coalition going, so I'm gonna chill a bit and wait for it to die down before I hit Bohemia. At a certain point during the game, you will get this event right here, Desposito Aquileia, where you want to choose this first option right here. At this point, Austria broke their alliance with me because they claimed my throne because they have a Hohenzollern on their dynasty as well. This is not something you need to worry about. This is just a very, very rare scenario. For your first stage ability, you should of course select Justified Wars. At this point, Poland, even though they have Hungary as a junior partner along with Lithuania, they still got declared on by the Ottomans. Now, in an ideal scenario, if my AE wasn't so high, this would be a perfect time to declare on them and take some provinces from them that we're interested in. Of course, if you're going for some historical borders or something like that, or a tall campaign, you would want to focus on like these provinces right here. But of course, this area right here and this area right here are perfect for taking from Poland. So if you ever find Poland in a scenario like this, even if it's in the early game and they're still pretty powerful, this is totally a chance to declare on them. Like I said, I won't be doing it because my aggressive expansion is still pretty high and I'm waiting for it to die down so I can declare on Bohemia. If you ever find yourself with some spare cash, you can totally go ahead and build 10 light ships and tell them to protect trade in the Baltic Sea or in Lubeck, depending on which trade node you have more power in, and you can collect in one of those. Later on, we will want to move our main trade node to Lubeck because it's better than Saxony, and if you're planning on doing a whole lot of conquering, you can even move it to the English Channel later. Now that enough time has passed and the coalition has disbanded, it is time for me to declare on Bohemia and take the area of Silesia, a very valuable area right here. We got a center of trade, we got a cloth producing province, an iron one, a glass one, another iron one, which can later turn to coal. So overall, it's an area we want to take hold of as soon as we can. And like I said, you'll be doing the same, unless of course you had a little less AE than me, in which case in the meantime, you could have fought one of your smaller neighbors. Either way, it is time to declare on Bohemia. So I'm just gonna declare for this province right here, and I am gonna call in my allies just so I can make this war easier. Of course, it shouldn't be too difficult unless they've allied to someone super strong. So go ahead and declare. Once you hit Admin Tech 7, you will be able to take your second idea group, and for your second idea group, I recommend taking innovative ideas. Now, of course, some may argue that innovative isn't that good, the stuff it provides is not that good, but we do have some very nice militarily focused policies with it, like siege ability, combat ability, and stuff like that, and honestly, the cheaper advisors and tech and institution discounts, along with the +1 free policies that have been added in Lions of the North, makes innovative an excellent pick. If you still don't think they're that good, you should go with economic for your second idea group. Like I said earlier, we're going full Space Marines with all the mil idea groups, economic, innovative, and then trade and diplo. So innovative for your second idea group. And once you defeat Bohemia, depending on your aggressive expansion, you're gonna take as much from Silesia as you can, and or even these provinces over here in Lusatia, because they are provinces we have claims on as well. Now, as we can see right here, if I take all of Silesia, it is 62 aggressive expansion, quite a lot, and a coalition would reform again. So if you're in the same boat, you can go ahead and take a little less, something like this, maybe to prevent Poland from pushing in. If you're not worried about Poland, maybe you can do a little something like this. As we can see, that's only 25 AE. In my case, what I'm gonna do right here is take just these 3 provinces for now. That's still quite a lot of AE, 40, but I'm not gonna take anything else, no money, no war reps, so the truce expires quickly and we can pounce on them again and take the entirety of Silesia along with maybe Lusatia. So take as much as you can, focusing on Silesia while minimizing aggressive expansion. And that's our first war with Bohemia done. You may have most or all of Silesia by now. After you fought Bohemia, it's once again time to chill a little bit and then later declare on a small neighbor or maybe even Poland. For your tier 3 government reform, if you're actually not going for a Prussia campaign and if you're planning on being emperor and stuff like that with Brandenburg, you can totally go with representatives of the crown for bonuses to vassals and marches, but otherwise, if you're doing a regular campaign like I am, you can go with expanded royal court so you can blaze through the reforms, or you can go with centralized monarchical bureaucracy. I'm gonna go with expanded royal court. At this point, I am finally able to royal marry Burgundy. And like I said earlier, if you can do this, do it. Unfortunately, I still can't ally them. And as we can see here in my case, since they've rivaled both France and Austria, they won't be picking them for the Burgundian inheritance, most likely, and that leaves me and Aragon right here, so they're gonna have to choose between me and Aragon when it does happen. For your second age ability, it's not a bad idea to choose adaptive combat terrain for +1 combat bonus in terrain of capital. Our capital Berlin is in woods, and there are lots of woods provinces over in the HRE and in Poland as well, so that should help you out in battles quite a lot as well. At this point, I've taken out new burger loans. I've just started building a marketplace in this province right here since it is a center of trade, and now I'm gonna go ahead and move along with building some workshops in the high value trade good provinces like cloth, gems, iron, salt, you already know this. Depending on what your goals are, you're going to pick a different naval doctrine. If you're planning on expanding in Scandinavia, fighting Denmark and stuff like that, you can totally go for a chance to capture enemy ships or galley combat ability. Otherwise, if you're not planning on getting involved over here, like I'm not, you can totally go with merchant navy for ship trade power. And there we go, the Burgundian succession did happen, and Burgundy chose Aragon, as we can see, but hopefully in your game you'll have a little bit more luck than I did, and you will get Burgundy yourself. That's of course if you did manage to royal marry them. Now when the Burgundian succession does happen, you will most likely be emperor, in which case you will be able to choose one of these options right here. Of course, if you got Burgundy yourself, you will choose to keep your union over Burgundy. However, if you did not get Burgundy yourself, if someone like maybe France or Aragon got them, you should choose the press or claim on Burgundy and restore your union over Burgundy, or you can demand that the lowlands be released as princes of the HRE if you're planning on doing an HRE focused campaign. Now, like I said in my game right here, I'm planning on going for sort of a tall-ish Prussia and then a tall-ish Germany. I'm not really planning on expanding over here, and even though these are super nice provinces, they're not very relevant for my goal. So that's why I'm just gonna choose demand that the lowlands be released as princes of the HRE. However, if you're going for a more aggressive campaign, like I said, you can totally press your claim on Burgundy and make them your junior partner by force, even though they didn't choose you. Never choose this third option where you abandon the claims, you lose prestige and imperial authority. So one of these two. Now that a little bit of time has passed and aggressive expansion from fighting Bohemia has died down, I am going to continue with my wars and fight Stettin right here. If you're not fighting the big guys, like I said earlier, you're fighting the small guys. It's not a bad idea to push this way either to get these nice center of trade provinces, and you should remember that these guys are free cities. So make sure to revoke their free city status before you fight them, or revoke their free city status right away, because later, when you become Protestant, you're gonna lose the emperorship. So you want to get rid of the free city status of Hamburg, Bremen, Goslar, Dortmund, and Aachen, nations that you will be conquering while you're still Protestant, but before the War of the Protestant League happens, where you make Protestant official and get back to being emperor. So don't forget to revoke the free city status of these guys up here, and instead give it to some of the guys down here, which you won't be fighting that soon. With that out of the way, I am gonna go ahead and declare on Stettin right here. Even though they're allied to Denmark, I can just call in my boys and defeat Denmark and Norway easily. And there we go, Aragon has actually accepted my demand to release the lowlands as independent princes, and these are the guys that popped out of Burgundy. Pretty nice for an HRE focused campaign. You get more nations in the HRE, which is always good, and if you're planning on doing a tall campaign like me, you're not really interested in these if you're going for like historical borders or something. Otherwise, you would have declared on Burgundy if you chose the second option. And now that I've defeated Stettin, I will be full annexing them since it's not a whole lot of AE. And there we go. Now I'm gonna chill a bit more, wait for aggressive expansion to die down once again, and then get ready to fight Bohemia, probably for the second time, or maybe even Poland. Of course, you will get claims on Poland once you take all of Silesia, but if you can declare on them before you unlock that mission, totally go for it. There's no need to wait for the mission tree. Once a little bit of time has passed, aggressive expansion has cooled down, and you've already dealt with one of your smaller neighbors in the areas that we have claims on, it's time to shift our focus back to Bohemia and take the entirety of Silesia if you haven't already, and if you have, you should take these three provinces right here. Of course, if you want to conquer more into Bohemia, after you take this and Silesia, you should go for this area right here and take the gold mine over in the province of Cheb. Like I said, I'm going for a sort of historical border setup right here, so I'm not going to be focusing on these provinces right here, but if that's not your thing, you can totally go for the gold mine after you take the land that we have claims on. I'm going to declare on Bohemia right here for the conquest of this province, and I'm going to call in some of my boys to help out. Now that I've defeated Bohemia, I'll be taking the rest of Silesia along with Lusatia, and that's a pretty nice way to go about your two wars with Bohemia, at least if you're playing the way that I'm playing. There's 8 provinces here. Take half in the first war and then the other half in the second war. At this point, I'm also going to get war reps and all of their money, and I'm going to make them end an alliance or two just for that prestige. And that's my second war with Bohemia done. And by your second war, you should also own the same provinces that I own right here. After you wrap up these wars with Bohemia, you can go ahead and take this mission right here, conquer Silesia, which gives us monthly autonomy change, and permaclaims on some areas in Poland. These areas right here. And those are primarily the ones you want to focus on later when you do fight Poland. However, if we're going for historical German borders, make sure to not take these 3 provinces because I don't think we need these 3. Of course, if you don't care about that stuff, just take all of it. After you finish your second war with Bohemia, it's time to chill a little bit more and then continue our conquest either in these guys over here, or maybe if you've gotten Ansbach as a junior partner and unlocked that mission, you will also have some claims down here, in which case you can feed Ansbach if you want to. If not, just let them go, because we don't want a one province minor taking up a diplo relation slot. But after you've chilled a little bit, it's time to continue with Poland and these guys right here. Meanwhile, focus on building up your buildings, upgrading centers of trade, and developing your provinces with those extra points that you'll have. Right now, even though AE is still pretty high for me, Poland is actually fighting the Ottomans and Muscovy, which is super crazy, but also a great opportunity for me to declare on them myself. Like I said, if Poland is super strong, like in my case right here, take advantage of opportunities like this. And like I said, even though AE is pretty high, I will still go for this just to make things easier for myself down the line. And I'm simply going to declare for that province right there and call in all of my allies, even though I don't really need anyone, since Poland will be suffering at the hands of the Ottomans and Muscovy. This is an opportunistic war, do it whenever you can. Your main focus is still in the HRE. For your tier 4 government reform, I recommend to take maintain balance of power. And now that I have enough war score with Poland, I'm only going to take a few provinces right here as much as AE permits me, and even though it says a coalition will form right here, it's just Bohemia and Poland, the two countries that I fought recently, so it won't really form. These are the only provinces I'm interested in, so I'll be taking them, and you can easily take all of these in just one war. I'm also going to get war reps and as much money as I can. And that's my war with Poland done. And this is a war that you might do during this time frame. It's not a necessary one like the ones we've been doing in the HRE, but it is something that might happen, just like the Burgundian inheritance, not something that's necessary. After you do conquer these provinces from Poland, you will be able to take this mission right here, where you gain some trade efficiency and diplo rep. After you do conquer these provinces from Poland and state them as well, you should promote Polish culture. And like I said earlier, you will lose the emperorship when Protestantism spawns. In my case, it's already spawned since I did play a little bit later than I normally play, and hopefully you'd be one of the first to embrace it, so you could spawn a center of reformation yourself. In my case, 3 nations have already embraced it, so they spawned it. But just to show you the negative effects of flipping Protestant, which is something we want to do, even though there is negative effects, I'm going to show you right now what happens. And the most important thing is, aside from losing the manpower and force limit, because we will lose the emperorship, we will also lose a lot of governing capacity, which will be a problem until we get the emperorship back. So just to demonstrate right here, this is what's going to happen. First, you're going to flip to Protestant, boom, just like that. And like that, we stop being an empire and we're no longer the HRE emperor. Of course, now you can form Prussia once you hit admin tech 10. But as we can see, our manpower went from 76,000, I think I was at the max, to 33,000, and our force limit went from 80 something to 50 something, I think. But most importantly, our gov cap is down to 200, whereas previously it was 600, and we're way over. So look at these negative modifiers that we're getting. Of course, at that point, you will want to give the land rights to some of the estates right here. You will lose Crownland for this, but you do have to do it simply because of the gov cap, and that's just the negative effects that you're going to get when you lose the emperorship. Of course, later, when the War of the Protestant League happens, you are going to want to participate, and you are going to want to make sure that Protestantism becomes the official faith of the HRE, so you can go back to being emperor. Of course, when you flip Protestant, make sure to convert the provinces with the highest religious disunity first. Hopefully, you'll embrace it soon enough to where you spawn a center of reformation, but you also might want to wait so the Catholic guys can activate cardinals' spread institutions and you can get colonialism and then actually flip Protestant. It's up to you. I did also lose 2 diplomats because I flipped Protestant. And by around the 1490s, your game should look a little something like this. Of course, it did take me a little bit longer because I did fight Poland and I did want to demonstrate what flipping Protestant does. Of course, you already know, but I wanted to highlight the negative effects just so you guys know and aren't surprised. But like I said, by around the 1490s, your game should look a little something like this. Something you may not have by this point is the Polish territories that I've just taken from them, but something that you may have, which I don't, is Burgundy if you were lucky enough to get the Burgundian succession. Otherwise, if you followed the steps and if you've declared wars around the time that I declared them and took around the same provinces that I took, you should look a little something like this. Basically, we start off as Brandenburg and waited for the fate of Neumark event, got these provinces from the Teutons for 100 ducats, and then declared on Wolgast or Stettin, depending on which nation was easiest to fight. Then we fought the Teutonic Order, took these 2 provinces by dragging Poland in, then a little bit of expansion over here with your smaller neighbors if you could, waited for a truce with the Teutons, took the rest of them, maybe gave a province to Poland as well, making them not exist. After that, we waited for aggressive expansion to die down, and during that, you've probably become HRE Emperor, just like I did, and then we waited for aggressive expansion to take down some more, fought Bohemia once or twice by this point, and maybe if you had an opportunity, you could have declared on Poland and taken this, and once again, maybe you've gotten Burgundy as your junior partner. Of course, by exactly this point after the Protestant Reformation has spawned, you could have gone Protestant in order to spawn a Center of Reformation yourself, or alternatively, you could wait until you're actually at Admin Tech 10 and you can form Prussia and only then flip to Protestant, so you get to keep a hold of the emperorship for a little longer. It's totally up to you if you flip immediately to get the center, or if you wait to embrace colonialism and for Admin Tech 10. By this point, this is what my army is looking like: 24-4-4. Ideally, it'd be 24-4-7 by now, so let's just get a couple of more cannons right there. There we go. And my income at this point is 17 ducats a month with forts and armies down. I was making about 30 ducats a month when I was emperor with forts and armies down, but of course, that will decrease when you lose the emperorship. This is how much I'm making, everything running on full, about 8 ducats a month. Of course, my merchants are improving relations right now, and they're not set up in the optimal positions, but like I said, you should maybe collect in the Baltic or in Lubeck if you have enough trade power there. But by this point, you shouldn't have only been conquering. As we can see right here, I got 10 light ships protecting trade over in the Baltic Sea trade node, which I will start collecting from shortly. I have also been building buildings, something you should have been doing as well. I got marketplaces in all the center of trade provinces, a bunch of workshops in the high value trade good provinces, and then maybe some church and army buildings here and there, which aren't that important for now. And at this point, aggressive expansion isn't too bad. Bohemia and Poland are really the only nations that are really angry, and then the HRE guys are slightly angry because we've been expanding slowly. Of course, if you expanded more rapidly, you probably have more nations angry at you, and you're probably a lot bigger. But if you are expanding more rapidly than this, you probably don't need a guide and are just watching this for entertainment, since this guide is based for new-ish players. After this point, you will continue to expand in the same directions we've already been expanding in, of course, depending on what your goals are. Maybe you're going for a historical German borders type of campaign, in which case you'll keep pushing into the HRE very, very slowly. You could, of course, also dismantle the HRE if that's your thing. When the War of the Protestant League comes around, you can make Protestant official and become the emperor. Once again, it's totally up to you. Like I said, for our idea groups, we're going full Space Marines, which means you're going to want to take every mill idea group. Of course, later with the Prussian ideas, you are going to become even more powerful. So offensive, innovative is a great opener for that siege ability and policies. And then after offensive and innovative, I recommend quality and economic. After that, you can go defensive trade, and after that you can go quantity, diplomatic, or maybe even aristocratic if quantity is not your thing. But definitely go for defensive, quality, and offensive, and then one or maybe both out of aristocratic and quantity, and you'll get some very nice policies to go along with that as well. Of course, you are going to continue to follow your mission tree. It does give us claims on some stuff that we want to do. It does even have some colonial things, which you're probably not going to focus on. But after forming Prussia and after getting all the relevant provinces, you can also go ahead and form Germany. For your tier 5 government reform, you should go with dynastic administration or with meritocratic recruitment. For tier 6, you should go with royal decree. For tier 7, either of these 3 down here are pretty good. You can choose whichever one you want. For tier 8, if you're planning on doing a whole lot of blobbing, you should go with the social contract. Otherwise, you can go with Leviathan. For tier 9, you shouldn't go for L'État c'est moi if you need the gov cap. Otherwise, you can go with regional representation or kingdom for the people for +1 possible policies. And then for tier 10, all of these are really good, and you can pick whichever one you want if you even play that far. And like I said, around the 1490s, your realm should look a little something like this. Let me know in the comments below what's the next nation that I should do a guide on. If you want to watch me do stuff like this live, you can follow me on twitch.tv/TheRedHawkLive. And if you want to catch up on stuff from over there, you can subscribe to the second channel, link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like, it really helps out a lot. And if you want to see more challenges like this, or more EU4 videos in general, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. And you can become a member today and join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video.